I'm Terry Vance, Pro Stock Drag Racing Champion. I'm the one in the leathers. My friend is Willie Simon. It's his first time at the drag strip. Can Willie become a drag racer? Sure, and so can you.
Well, how's she running?
She's running pretty good. Got a few qualifying passes down, and we're going to make a few more. Hopefully she'll run a little bit better. How about you? You ready to race?
Sure.
Okay, great. Listen, if you've got the basics of motorcycle riding down, you should be in pretty good shape.
Okay.
The only thing you have to remember that is if you make any sudden moves on your way down the track, it really reacts on the bike. So make sure you stay as smooth as possible. So why don't you get your helmet on and we'll try to make a run here and see how it works out. Let me take these mirrors off. Okay, Willie, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let you make a run this time. We're not going to do any burnout. We're just going to roll up, light the staging lights, and then have you go down the track real nice and smooth so you can get accustomed to what you're doing. Okay, and then we'll see how that goes, and then we'll make another one in a few minutes. So why don't you go ahead and get on, and then we'll go from there. We're going to let you roll forward, light the first stage light, then you light the second stage light, and then you leave the starting line. You leave it like you're leaving a stop sign, only a little bit more throttle, and kind of lean forward. Keep your weight forward. That way the front end of the bike won't come up. Okay, let's put your shield down and give it a try. You know, I think he's going to do all right, to tell you the truth. We want you to roll up, light the both lights just like you did before, okay? And then you're going to make a full pass. So make sure that you tuck in when you get going, and when you get the other end, don't make any sudden try to stop or anything. Just coast to a nice slow stop, okay? Let's give it a try. Put your shield down here. Okay. Okay, Willie, that was great. You went 1398, so we're going to turn you around and try to give you a few more tips on what to do to make you go a little bit quicker, okay? All right, great. Why don't you go ahead and turn around. Okay, this time what I want you to do is when you leave the starting line, I want you to give a little more throttle and a little more clutch. The front end will come up a little bit, but just kind of lean forward and it'll keep it down, okay? And shift a little bit sooner. When the tag gets to about 9,000, don't wait till 10, okay? That way you'll have a little more mid-range power. Okay? Let's give it a shot. Okay, Willie, let's try to do a burnout here. Even with a small displacement bike like a 450, you need to do a burnout to warm up the tire and make the tire nice and sticky so that when you go to the starting line, it'll have good traction. To get this done, you need to roll into the water. Make sure that you don't get your front tire into the water, because if you do, it may slip out from under you, and you don't want that to happen. You roll back into the water. You put your body weight forward, as far forward as you can. You give it a little bit of throttle, and you let out the clutch. Once you have the tire spinning, it will start turning and make some smoke, and you give it a few seconds until it gets warmed up, and then you roll out of the water. When you roll up the stage, you have to make sure that the bike's in low gear, and you roll up, you light the light, and when you leave the starting line, you make sure that your body weight is forward and that you don't give it too much throttle and not enough clutch, because if you do that, then you bog the motor and you have a real problem. Or you can give it too much throttle and too much clutch, and then it'll do a wheelie and you'll lose a lap's time. It's also important to remember that as you leave the starting line, to get your feet up on the pegs as soon as possible, because if you don't, you'll over-rev the motor, and that's not good. So it's good to get your feet up and shift into the next gear as soon as possible. After you get going down the track, it's good to keep it tucked in as close as you can to the bike. This gives you less wind drag, and naturally it'll make you go a little bit quicker. Willie's not tucked in as good as he should be here. He should be a little bit tighter to the tank. And if you are, then naturally you drag a little bit less wind. As you can see, Willie's jacket's flapping a little bit in the breeze here, and it would be better if he had leather jacket on, and in that way it's a little bit more safe. As you approach the finish line here, you need to keep the bike nice and straight and keep your concentration on where you're at on the track.
Hey, that was really good, Willie. Way to go, you really shaved some time off there. Listen, you got to make sure now when you're going down the track you stay towards the middle. That way you'll pick up a little more time in that too. Well, do you think I'm ready for the 1100? Well, I think we're going to make a few runs on it. You could maybe watch and get a few pointers and we'll see what happens. Okay, all right. Okay, Willie, what the deal is here is that on riding a bigger bike like this, you have to do a lot of things different. The bike has a lot more power, so it's a lot harder to ride. So you have to kind of use your weight in a lot different way than you do with your smaller bike. So I'm going to make a few runs here and maybe show you what we're going to do, and then maybe you can make a few runs and see how you do.
If there are two words that totally describe drag racing in general, it would be total concentration. There's no doubt that the concentration that a rider has will directly reflect the times that he turns. When you're on the bike and you're in the staging area, it's really important to remember only the things that pertain to what you're doing at the time. If you're worrying about the other guy in the other lane, or how fast you're going to go, or how many people in the grandstands are cheering for you, there's no way that you can totally concentrate on what you're doing. It's very important just to remember the things that you're doing. Make sure the bike's in low gear. Make sure you don't over-rev the motor when you leave the starting line. Make sure you have your weight forward. Make sure you get your feet up. Make sure you shift at the proper RPMs. All these things sum up to a good ET for the run that you're going to make. Now, when I had my helmet made for racing in general, I had it made with a real small slot in the opening. There's a reason for this. I didn't do this because I thought it looked good. It's so that I can't see the competitor in the other lane. And the reason is I need to concentrate on what I'm doing, not what he's doing. And it works out real well. When you're riding one of these GS1100s, it's important to remember that it has a lot more power than probably any bike you've ridden before. And it's important to remember that you don't give it too much throttle when you leave the starting line, because if you do, it will spin the tire. And if it spins the tire, then naturally you're going to lose precious time. Once you've left the starting line, make sure you get your feet up and shift into second gear around 9,000 RPMs. You don't want to over-rev the motor. 9,000 RPMs is the maximum torque output for the motor, and that works real good as a shift point. As you approach the finish line, it's important to remember to stay tucked as well as you can. You need to keep your arms up so they don't drag a lot of air. It's also important to remember that after you go through the speed traps, to not sit up real fast. Kind of sit up real slow and take your time, make sure the bike is nice and steady, and then start applying the brakes. There's a lot of people that like to be involved in some sort of racing, and motorcycle racing is definitely the thing of the future. It's an economical way to be involved in motorsports racing and have a lot of fun and be real competitive. It's also something that you can do without a tremendous amount of skill. You can become a very good drag racer without having to go through 5 or 10 years worth of work, you know, like a lot of racers might do. When I first got involved in drag racing, I used to drag race 3 times a week. You know, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'd spend the whole entire days out there racing. And it's just totally unrestricted fun.